You ever play a licensed game that went way harder than I had any right to? That's The Warriors. Instead of just cashing in on the movie, Rockstar built an entire backstory around it, with gang wars, flashbacks, and these giant in-depth brawls that feel like Manhunt had a baby with Double Dragon. And it really actually works. And if you're new around here, we dig into the games that time left behind, the ones that were underrated, forgotten, or just plain weird, and The Warriors checks every one of those boxes.
How am I supposed to write with no spray?
The Warriors dropped in 2005 on the PS2 and Xbox, later hitting the PSP and eventually showing up digitally on PS3 and PS4. It was developed by Rockstar Toronto and published by Rockstar Games, pulling straight from the 1979 cult film of the same name, which itself was based on a novel from '65. It's a rare case where a movie tie-in doesn't just retell the plot, it builds on it, fleshing out the backstory and showing how the gang came together before the film's events.
What if they're in there just waiting for us?
The game starts months before the iconic meeting in the Bronx, and ends right where the movie does, giving us 18 full levels, 13 original missions, 5 flashback chapters, and then a full recreation of the film's final stretch. Most of the core cast for the movie even came back to do their voices for their characters, and it helps sell the vibe that you're really running with the crew. It's set in a grimy version of 1979 New York. You play as different members of the Warriors depending on the mission. There's Cleon, the leader, Swan, his second in command, and a few others like Ajax, Snow, Fox, Rembrandt, Cochise, Cowboy, and Vermin. Most missions just give you one to control, but the others roll with you as AI. You'll spend a lot of time with Swan and Ajax especially. Each character has their own personality, fighting style, and role in the crew. Rockstar really leaned into the brawler side of things here, but they also layered in a lot of side mechanics that make the world feel more alive. Tagging turf, mugging strangers, looting stores, and building up your rep as you go. It's not quite open world, but it's loaded with little moments that pull you into the Warrior's life.
Take him down!
At its core, it's a straight up beat 'em up, but it's packed with layers that gives it more weight than just swinging your fists. Missions take you all over New York, and each one has its own flavor. Sometimes you're just fighting with rival gangs, other times you're looting storefronts, chasing down a tag battle in Soho, or trying to stay alive while the baseball furies are hunting you down with their bats in Central Park. It leans hard into that gang warfare vibe. It's chaotic, grimy, and personal. And the combat feels chunky and violent, but in the best kind of way. You've got your standard punches and kicks, but the real fun comes from grabbing enemies and slamming them into walls, or pulling off power moves that are unique to each warrior. It's not a combo-heavy fighter, you're not juggling people for style points. This is more about impact. You'll be fighting with a squad too. Missions usually pair you up with at least one other warrior, sometimes up to 8. And you can give them basic commands like follow, hold back, or just go wild. It gives fights this gang against gang energy that makes everything feel way more intense than just solo brawls. In between all that chaos, the game gives you breathing room at the Warriors' hideout in Coney Island. This spot works like a home base. You can train the Warriors with setups, push-ups, chin-ups, and heavy bag work to level up their stamina. You can walk around and talk to your crew, pick up bonus objectives, or head outside for side content scattered around the neighborhood. It makes the gang feel real, like you're actually living in their world, not just jumping from level to level.
Okay!
Everything you do, mugging, tagging, looting cars, taking out enemies, it feeds into a reputation system. You build your rep and you'll unlock extra characters, arenas, and modes for Rumble mode. That's the game's free-for-all side mode, where you can play as just about any character in the game, even random NPCs. It's tucked away, but in my opinion, it's one of the best unlockable bonuses Rockstar has ever put into one of their games. There's also set flashback missions that act as a playable prequel to the prequel, showing how each warrior joined the crew back in 1978. These fill out the backstory in a meaningful way and help explain the dynamic between certain members. And once you finish the story, you unlock Armies of the Night, a bonus side-scrolling brawler that feels like a nod to Double Dragon or Streets of Rage. It's non-canon, of course, and totally over the top, but it's a perfect little send-off to the main campaign. Mechanically, the game's old school in how it controls. Movement's handled with the left stick, while the camera control is very clunky to modern standards. The D-pad lets you recenter, but it's not as smooth as you'd hope. Combat inputs are simple, just a few buttons for light and heavy attacks, grabs, and special moves, but there's enough variety to keep it engaging. You've got a rage meter that builds as you fight. You fill it up, and you can unleash stronger finishers while temporarily shrugging off damage. It's a really nice get-out-of-jail mechanic when you're getting swarmed. And your health is tied to a drug in the game called Flash. You can find it on enemies, buy it from dealers, or just find it laying around on the streets. If your allies go down, you can revive them with it. And if you drop, they'll try to save you, unless you're out of Flash. In which case the mission's just over, you have to restart the checkpoint. It creates a nice tension in the harder levels where one bad decision can get your whole crew wrecked. Even when it's janky or old school, the Warriors knows what it wants to be. It's raw, dirty, and focused on making you feel like you're part of this underground fight for survival. And that tone stays locked in through every part of how it plays.
I don't want to ride the pony.
You know what really makes the Warriors stand out? It's not that it's just a good beat 'em up, it's that it feels lived in. Like this world's been spinning long before you got here, and it'll keep spinning after you're gone. The game isn't just trying to hit you with flashy fights or fan service. It's building a whole underground culture from the ground up. You're not just dropped into a movie adaptation, you're earning your way through something bigger. And by the time you hit the movie's actual story beats in the final stretch, it matters more. You've been through the ranks, you know these characters beyond their archetypes. Rambrandt's not just the quiet tagger, Ajax isn't just muscle. You fought side by side, messed up together, and pulled each other out of chaos. That prequel structure works because it gives the film's events context you didn't even know you were missing. The movie always hit a certain way, but after playing this, it's different. And it's not just storytelling. The level of detail Rockstar poured into the world is wild. Coney Island isn't just a hub, it's your home. You can train, talk, take side missions, and dig into these characters. The other gangs feel distinct, not just in their looks, but how they fight, how they talk, and how they move. You get set pieces that could have easily come off gimmicky, like running from the baseball furies through the park, but instead, they're full-blown adrenaline rushes because the game sells it. Every piece of it, the energy, the stakes, the attitude. It's rare to see a licensed game take this kind of care. This wasn't just a cash grab. It wasn't just trying to ride the movie's coattails. It was a chance to expand the cult classic into something even more complete, something interactive, something personal. And nearly 20 years later, it still holds up, because it was built with intention, not just to be played, but to be remembered. There's something kind of wild about going back to this game in 2025. The Warriors feels like it slipped through the crack in time. Like a game that was never supposed to exist at this level of quality. It's based on a cult movie from the late 70s, tied to the novel, from even earlier than that, and somehow Rockstar turned all that into one of the most dedicated, brutal, and fully fleshed out licensed games of its generation. And yeah, it's definitely got that old school jank to it. The camera fights you all the time. The AI doesn't always hold up. The controls are stiff in the way a lot of PS2 era brawlers were. But the thing is, once you get past that first layer, the Warriors opens up into something way more ambitious than you'd expect. It's not just a movie retelling, it's a full-blown prequel with original missions, character development, and world building that somehow manages to add to the film instead of watering it down. The hub area alone gives you more to chew on than most modern AAA games. You've got optional training systems, challenge modes, conversations with the crew, extra missions on the street. All of it feeding into the raw feeling of being part of something bigger. You're not just playing as the Warriors, you are one of them. And when the game does start to line up with the movie, it doesn't just hit the same beats, it hits harder. The music swells, the pacing ramps up, and you feel the weight of everything that came before. It makes the events of the film land with more meaning because now you live that journey. If you played this back in the day, revisiting it now feels like cracking open a time capsule. One that still smells like spray paint and asphalt. If you never got the chance, it's worth playing just to see what licensed games look like when a team actually gave a damn. This wasn't just a contract job, it was made with care, with grime under its nails and a clear love for the source material. And does it hold up? In a lot of ways, yeah, it really does. And honestly, in a gaming landscape that's so clean and corporate now, going back to something this raw and reckless feels like a breath of fresh air. The Warriors has earned a place most licensed games never even get close to. It didn't launch with huge ad campaigns or sell tens of millions of copies, but that was never the point. This wasn't made to chase trends, it was a passion project disguised as a beat 'em up, and anyone who played it at the time could feel that. Rockstar didn't just adapt the movie, they expanded it. They filled in the blanks, gave the gang real history, and turned a simple premise into something that felt lived in and personal. The fact that it released nearly 3 decades after the original film and still found an audience is kinda incredible. For a lot of players, especially those who weren't around in the 70s, the game was their introduction to the Warriors. And for longtime fans of the movie, it gave them something they never had before: context, control, and connection. You weren't just watching these characters fight to survive, you were part of it. Critically, the game was well received. It was praised for its combat system, attention to detail, and how faithfully it captured the look and tone of the film. But over time, what really cemented its legacy was word of mouth. It became one of those games you tell your friends about, the kind you dig out years later just to see if it was as good as you remembered, and it almost always was. Even now, The Warriors gets brought up in conversations about the best cult classics on PS2. It shows up on fan lists, gets recommended on forums, and pops up in retrospectives for how well it holds up. That's not something you can manufacture. That kind of staying power only happens when a game strikes the right chord. It may not have been a massive commercial juggernaut, but it was successful in the way that matters. It stuck with people, and that's more than most licensed games ever manage. In a way, The Warriors became its own kind of street legend, passed around, remembered, and respected by the people who got to walk its streets, throw its punches, and live in the world for just a little while.
To make sense. There's no other way. This is our destiny, and this is our will.
And that's The Warriors, a weird one to pin down, but still one of the most unique tie-in games Rockstar's ever touched. It's not perfect, and it damn sure isn't for everybody, but if you got a soft spot for this era of gaming, or the movie itself, there's still something kind of special here. There's a lot to this game, and honestly I could have spent another 15 minutes walking through every mechanic, every unlockable, every little system it crams in. But that's not really what this video is about. I wanted to focus more on why you should remember it, than just break down every single feature. Because all of its rough edges, there's a spark here that's worth preserving. This one was a tough video to crack for me for some reason. There's not some huge emotional moment or mind-blowing story twist to unpack, like some of the other games I've covered. But that's okay. Not every game in the vault is a masterpiece. Some of them are just products of their time, rough, interesting, ambitious in their own way. And that's what this series is for. If you stuck around this long with me, thank you. These videos I do mean a lot to me, even when they don't come easy. So as always, I'll see y'all later.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?